Hello, dear students. This is Mr. Chung, and in this video, I want to quickly go over why our method for dilation works. So notice how for our point D, when we went from D to D prime, it's pretty straightforward because we're going straight up and down. We know that if D is just 3 up, we can multiply that by 1.5, and that stretches to 4.5 for D prime. But for point E, it's not so straightforward. Point E goes from the origin diagonally. And so when we want to stretch that out, how do we know that our E prime is really going to be 1.5 times the length of that green line that I just drew? Well, notice how when we went from the origin, which is where the problem tells us to start, and we go 2 to the right and 2 down, we have just created a right triangle. And likewise, when we drew E prime, we went 3 to the right and 3 down, and now we've created another right triangle. So let's draw those 2 triangles on a whiteboard to make it more clean. Okay, so for our first one, we'll do 2 to the right, 2 down. For our second one, we go 3 to the right and 3 down. Let's call our first diagonal on the green triangle X, and let's call our second diagonal on the red Y. So our question is, how do we know that Y is 1.5 times X? Remember, when we went from 2 to 3, we just did 2 times 1.5, and that was equal to 3. That's how we got from this side over here and this side over here. But if those two sides are 1.5, so if 3 is 1.5 times 2, do we know that Y is 1.5 times X? And how would we know? Pause the video and think for yourself. If you said that we could use the Pythagorean theorem to figure this out, you'd be right. So I want you to first pause the video and find X using the Pythagorean theorem. Go ahead. Okay, so now I will do this for you. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. 2 squared plus 2 squared equals X squared. 4 plus 4 equals X squared. 8 equals X squared. And then the square root, take the square root of both. Square root of 8 is equal to X. And we can use our calculator to figure that out later, but for now, I'll leave it as a square root. Now, pause the video and do the same to find Y on the red triangle. All right, if you did 3 squared plus 3 squared equals Y squared, 9 plus 9 equals Y squared. 9 plus 9 is 18, that equals Y squared. Take the square root of both sides, and we have square root of 18 is equal to Y squared. So all we need to do now is to, oh, and by the way, I made a little error there. So square root of 18 is equal to Y. Okay, so now let's use our calculator to figure out what each one of these is going to equal. All right, so I'm on the Desmos scientific calculator. Let's do square root of 8. And as you see, it gives us 2.828. And let's do square root of 18. And that gives us 4.243. Notice we're rounding up because 6 is bigger than 5. So 4.243. So let's go back to our whiteboard and check that out. So I'm going to say 2.828 is equal to x, and 4.243 is equal to y. So now I want you to take your calculator and multiply 2.828 times 1.5. And what does that equal? Pause the video and do it yourself. Okay, now let's go check it out. So 2.828 times 1.5, it gives us about 4.242, and that's because we rounded, right? If we did the exact number, so I'm going to copy paste 2.828427125, and we multiply that times 1.5, then we would get the exact same answer. See how I'm highlighting this answer and this answer? They are the same. Square root of, or we could also do 1.5 times the square root of 8. That gives us the same answer, 4.242640687. Okay, but you get the point. They are the same. Okay, so that's how we know that as long as we move to the right and up, right and left, up and down, we can use that to make sure that the diagonals are also going to be dilated properly. All right, over